This is the Patriots Drive Podcast.
We are all Patriots.
Where we discuss, analyze, and answer questions to all things happening in the NFL and with our New England Patriots. Now, here's your host, Cole Kelly.
Let's go!
Welcome into another edition of the Patriots Drive Podcast. Patriots fall to the Buffalo Bills, 33-21 at Gillette Stadium today. Dropped their record to 9-6 on the year, tied with the Bills record-wise, but the Bills have the tiebreaker based on AFC East record this year, and it was a tough one. Tough loss. It felt like a must-win game for this team, a big opportunity, a chance for them to clinch the AFC East if they won this game, and Miami lost tomorrow to the Saints. So it was a big opportunity that they just missed, and it's tough. The defense, we'll get into it more, but just overall, the team wasn't ready to come out and play, and that's the bottom line. Buffalo wanted it more than we did, and that's who won the football game, and they won it quite handedly. So we can't keep getting down early like this and trying to claw our way back. Great, yeah, it's great that you have a good fourth quarter, a good end of the third and fourth quarter, but it's too little, too late at that point. So just couldn't make the plays when they need to be made, but tough loss and on to Jacksonville, I guess, but it's definitely not an ideal day for Pats fans. The 1 seed a couple weeks ago going into the bye week felt great, and now we're dropped all the way down to the 6 seed. So not great, not the best case scenario, but we'll go from here and hopefully they take it 1 week at a time and can turn this thing around quickly. But I'm here with my co-host Jace Campbell. How's it going, Jace?
I've been better. All Patriots fans have been better than what we are today, but no, you're seeing a lot of the tendencies come out in the 2-4 Patriots that started off the season, and we've talked about it a lot on here, but there's too many uncharacteristic mistakes. Too many times we're shooting ourselves in the foot when we have promising drives. Defense couldn't get out of big clutch drives when they had opportunities on 3rd and long, 4th downs, which is what they did in the 7-game win streak. And in the first 6 games when we started 2-4, they didn't do. So it's frustrating to see us go from a team that started off with some hard games, tough opponents, and a couple games that were winnable, but we were just so close. And then we go on the 7-game win streak. We get all this hope. And then, after the bye week, which is crazy because I thought Bill would definitely have this team ready after the bye week. They've
self-scouting
flat
all
both
that
games.
Stuff.
They've looked flat both games, and it's been something that needs to get fixed quick. And quite frankly, I think it will. When you're going up against Jacksonville next week, I hope that that's a game that you can bounce back and win. James Robinson just tore his Achilles, so hopefully he's on the road to speedy recovery. But you got to bounce back now. You have 2 winnable games ahead of you, and you're in the playoffs. The last 2 games are against 2 of the top teams in the AFC, and quite frankly, you were a top team in the AFC also. The Patriots were, and now you're kind of losing the respect that you gained, but you got to go out and prove it. You still got to make the playoffs. There's still opportunities for this team to make it. And so we'll see how they respond.
Yeah. And I am excited to see how they respond. I quite honestly thought this was going to be the game that we saw them respond. It's just uncharacteristic for them to play 2 games back to back this flat. I mean, it looked exactly like the 2-4 Patriots that we saw that don't deserve to be in the playoffs. So I hope they turn it around. I hope they turn it around fast because the end of the season is approaching quickly, and there's a real shot that if you blow these next 2 games, we don't make the playoffs at all. And that's kind of terrifying, seeing how we were the 1 seed 2 weeks ago, like I said. So they got a lot of work to do. They got the good news, I guess, is that a lot of it is just mistakes they should be able to fix, just executing, just stop making killer penalty mistakes that just kill drives over and over again. Like we saw Christian Barmore at one point jump off sides and make a hard 4th and 7 into a 4th and 2 that was easy, and then just couldn't get a stop. It's like stuff like that. When you got them backed up, we just couldn't make a play. We had killer penalties. Not as many this game as the Colts game, I will say that, obviously, but it was just a tough game overall. You hate to see the team come out flat 2 games in a row like this back to back when we felt like it was a great opportunity and we really needed it. So just overall, 0 punts from Buffalo. That's insane. That was the first time by a Belichick coach team that's ever happened. According to Twitter today, some page posted that, but it was a tough game. Josh Allen played absolutely phenomenal. I hate to say that because screw Josh Allen, but he played great, and he played a damn near perfect game. He gave us a couple opportunities and we didn't take advantage of them. It's as simple as that. And in games like this, division games, tight games, every play play counts. Every opportunity you get, you need to take advantage of. And the team that takes advantage of the opportunities they get the most is going to win the game. And that wasn't us today.
Yeah, and that's the thing is as soon as Josh Allen started making throws across his body, across the middle of the field, which is like cardinal sin, rule number 1 in the quarterback book, and he completed 2 of them, I'm like, it's just one of those days where Buffalo came out and Josh Allen was on a mission, and it was an off day for New England, which has been 2 in a row, and it's really killed them. But when you see a quarterback out there just doing whatever he wanted to, like Josh Allen did, it was infuriating because this is not a bottom, half of the NFL. This is not a bad defense in the NFL. This team's top 5 when they're playing well. And the last couple of weeks, they've looked maybe, bottom 10. They just have not shown up run game wise, pass game wise this game. Getting to Josh Allen, no pressure on him at all. I mean, there were a couple of times we got pressure, but consistently not enough. I felt like Judon was a non-factor today. He was getting chipped and stuff, and that's what they're going to do when he's an all-star. But there were times where he just, I was like, come on, like we got to have a big play here. And I felt like Judon wasn't getting in there, and along with other guys. It wasn't just Judon, but you look at your Pro Bowlers and JC Jackson, Judon to step up in games like this when you need plays, and they weren't really there. JC Jackson has a chance to take that interception on the last drive to the house, pick 6 right there, tie the game, or you'd go up, what, 21?
By 1, we were down by 5.
Yeah, it was 26-20 right there. You would have went up 27-20 or 27-26 if you would have hit the or 20. You would have went up 27-26. You kick the PAT 28. You probably go for 2 there to make it a field goal. Who knows? But I mean, and you saw that last week. Jamie Collins had a pick right in his hands and drops it. So it's just crazy little things that this team hasn't been doing in the 7-game win streak that all of a sudden are showing up, and you hope they can figure it out. And you pray that everything that they're saying in their press conference is like, hey, it's on to Jacksonville. It's on to, you got to start grinding now, get back to work and stuff. You hope that that's true because we can't afford another slip up now. The AFC wildcard picture is very tight and you can't afford a slip up. So when you have Buffalo going 6 for 12 on 3rd downs and 3 for 4 on 4th downs compared to our 1 for 10 on 3rd downs, and we were 5 for 6 on 4th downs, but we just weren't getting off the field consistently enough on defense, letting them extend drives. They had multiple 8+ play drives. Their first 2 drives, 13 plays, 10 plays, just getting picked apart. Our defense got tired, worn out. We couldn't keep Josh Allen in the pocket. There's a lot of things you can point the finger to for this game.
Yeah, for sure. And I mean, that was one of the most frustrating things is just that all the plays were there. And once in a while, it wasn't that often because so basically the Patriots game plan coming into this was take away the deep ball because that's what Josh Allen loves to do. He loves to throw it downfield. They said, you're not going to be patient enough all game to hit the checkdowns. And we were just leaving running backs, the check down open, wide open all game for like 7 to 12 yards. And when you just keep letting them hit chunk plays like that over and over again, that's like what the Patriots want to do. Death by 1,000 paper cuts. Eventually, you're going to get down to the red zone if you keep leaving them that open for yards after the catch. And it was a killer. And they did that. They were moving the ball down the field. Eventually, in the second half, Hightower didn't start playing as much because they realized he was kind of getting exposed in the passing game a little bit. Having Hightower and Bentley out there as 2 guys when they're going to be throwing the football a lot is not necessarily ideal for matchups on backs and stuff like that. So we saw that. And then in the times that we did get them in 3rd and long or 4th and mid to long areas like that, we just couldn't make the plays. It was, I mean, how many 3rd and 10s did we see today? 3rd and 8, 3rd and 10, where we're like, okay, we got him in a good spot. All we need to do is make one more play, get the defense off the field, give the offense the football. And it just didn't happen. And I mean, one of the biggest factors in that was Isaiah McKenzie. He just was torching Miles Bryant all game long. It was horrible. I mean, it wasn't even like it was a close matchup. He was getting burned by like 3 yards every single route he was running. He wasn't even close. Miles Bryant had one of the worst games I've seen from a corner of us in a long time. He was just getting absolutely exposed. I mean, the Patriots allowed more yards to Isaiah McKenzie today than he's had all season long by triple. He had 125 yards today. On the season before that, he had 38. So, I mean, just absolutely ridiculous. There's no excuse. They had a couple wide receivers down. Their playmakers stepped up when they needed to and made the plays. It's just we couldn't say the same. And it was tough. The way we want to play football, this team wants to play from ahead, use the running game, use play action, and let the two pieces on offense complement each other. And that's just when you're down by 20 points, down by 17, playing from behind the entire game, you can't play the style of offense that the Patriots want to play.
I felt like this is the one game where you really miss Jonathan Jones because Miles Bryant came in, he made a huge play against Buffalo last time we played him, and he's been a very good backup, alternative to the Jonathan Jones injury. But today he was killer, and you don't want to blame the whole thing on him because honestly, J.C. Jackson, Stephon Diggs got the better of him a couple times too, and I'm not blaming it on J.C. Jackson. I'm not blaming it on one person, but consistently our corners there, they struggled today. And Josh Allen is a dang good quarterback. When he can extend plays, it puts a lot of pressure on the secondary, and that's where it comes back. We didn't sack him once, and he's a mobile quarterback, so you don't expect to have that many sacks, but there wasn't even pressure at times, and he was just rolling out wherever he wanted to, flicking it, doing whatever he wanted to, toying with the defense. So it was frustrating to watch. And their run game, 114 yards on 28 carries. I didn't feel like it was incredible. They only
it was just Josh. Josh Allen had 64 of those.
Yeah.
Devin Singletary averaged 3.2 yards per carry on 12 carries. Zach Moss had 3 carries for 12 yards, so 4 yards per carry. So outside of Josh Allen, their running game really wasn't that bad. For the most part, it was those dink and dunk passes that we didn't think Josh Allen could do. And then him escaping the pocket. He had some huge just gaps in the rush lanes where he would just run for it. And it's just frustrating. When Josh Allen's playing that type of game, when he's playing that good, there's almost nothing you can do about it. The good thing and the thing that gives me hope about it is he doesn't play like that often. When you get one of those games, it sucks and you're probably screwed. You're probably going to lose unless you make a play. But he doesn't play perfect games very often. It's really hard to play a really good game like that in the NFL. And he doesn't do it that often, but he's capable of it. And that's why he's one of the elite quarterbacks in the NFL. But with the dumb throws like that across his body, across the field that he made 2 of those today, comes linebackers flying in and getting an interception at some point. You know what I mean? So it's his style of play is boom or bust in some situations. He either helps his team and puts the team on his back and makes some ridiculous plays, or he starts to hurt the team. And when he can do it with his legs along with his arms, it's hard to get pressure on him. It's hard to contain him, and it's hard to cover down the field for that long.
Yeah, and when you look at it, Josh Allen, there's few guys in the league that can scramble and throw the ball like he does. But when I just look at today's quarterback stats, this might have been one of the worst games Mac Jones played. And we don't expect for him to run around and make all the plays that Josh Allen does. But the little throws, there were times he looked uncomfortable in the pocket, didn't set his feet, missed wide open guys. And yes, there were a couple drops. I'm not putting it all on Mac, but this looked like one of the most uncomfortable games he's played. He throws one interception that I didn't love the play call, a quick slant to N'Keal Harry, linebacker reads it, gets a tip on it, easy pick for Micah Hyde, and then he throws one at the end of the 4th. So the 2 interceptions suck, but I felt like he was missing wide open guys and targets down the field that we've seen him make, and then he made a couple good throws that we've seen him do. So it was a crazy game. Props to Buffalo. They came in, they wanted it more. We went into Buffalo, we wanted it more. They came in here, they wanted it more. They had a chip on their shoulder, Pro Bowl snubs, things like that. So it was, the perfect storm for both teams. And honestly, I would love to see another Buffalo New England playoff matchup. I think it would be exciting. It would be thrilling. And you just hope that Buffalo slips up against the Jets, which I have no faith in the Jets, but it is what it is.
Yeah, it's they're not gonna. I'd be absolutely shocked if they lost one of the next 2 games, and it's going to be a great matchup if we play him again. And it's going to be tough for Josh Allen to replicate that formula of winning and for him to play as good as he did today and for Isaiah McKenzie to play as good as he did. But it's also not going to be easy for us because we saw how challenging it is to stop their offense. And they'd be getting Cole Beasley back along with Gabriel Davis and Latualele, however you pronounce his name, on the defense side of the ball. So they were missing some pieces. We were missing some guys. One thing that we've kind of touched on that we've mentioned, but we didn't really get to see it until today, is how big of an impact Nelson Aguilar secretly makes on this offense without making a lot of catches. there were some beat writers that were at the game and watching from above, and they said that the amount of separation that our receivers created this game was not very much. So yes, Mac Jones didn't play a great game, but it also looked like the offensive line wasn't blocking that great. They were getting pressure on Mac pretty easily, and Mac was kind of holding the ball. And I think part of holding the ball was, hey, who the heck am I supposed to throw it to? Nobody's open. And sometimes that forces quarterbacks, especially rookies, to force some throws and do some things you're not really comfortable doing. And sometimes you're just, once you see somebody open, you're like, oh my God, I have to hit this throw because nobody else is getting open. This guy's open. He wasn't himself today. He wasn't great. Again, late in the game, he played good, which is good, but we gotta start faster as an offense. And I think Nelson Aguilar makes much more of a difference than we kind of all realized, and his ability to take the top of the defense, draw some vertical attention, and open up spaces for the tight ends and some of those receivers like Jacoby Myers and Kendrick Bourne over the middle of the field. I think he really opens things up quite a bit. Just the threat of him going deep and defenses having to pay attention to him. So that was one thing that I also feel like we can take away from this game. The tight ends were kind of a disappointment. Hunter Henry didn't even have a catch until like the third or fourth quarter late. Jonnu, I mean, same as always. He didn't get any scheme touches. He didn't really touch the ball at all. Didn't get anything in the passing game. He's been the most disappointing signing we've had all year for sure. And it stinks because this was a game we really could have used him, especially with the struggles we had on offense. You give him one of those touches, those scheme touches, the screen passes, the end arounds, whatever it is. He's been taking those yards after the catch for like 10 to 20 yard plays. And I mean, something like that, a spark play that gets the offense going, gets you in good field position. And it's just frustrating to see the weapons that we do have not being necessarily utilized to the best of their abilities. I know there's probably a reason that he's not getting utilized as much, but it's frustrating to see our first player we signed in free agency not work out so much and him just not get used when we know the talent he has. Another thing with Jonnu is, I can't remember what the play was, but he had a holding call that got a big gain called
Brandon
back.
Bolden.
Was it a screen pass?
Mac Jones escapes and kind of flicks it to Brandon Bolden.
Yes, yeah.
It was like an 18-yarder.
And it's just like stuff like that. It's killer. Between Isaiah Wynn and Jonnu Smith, we can never have a good play. Anytime we have a big play, I sit there and make sure there's no flag. I'm like, I guarantee Jonnu or Isaiah Wynn did something wrong because that's what it always seems like. And little spoiler as well, Isaiah Wynn still sucks. I saw him get blown by multiple times today. At one point, he just let two guys run right by him. He didn't block either one of them. I was like, what is going on? But I guess that's just kind of what we got to live with, the good and the bad with Isaiah Wynn at this point. But there's a ton of stuff in this game that's frustrating, kind of uncharacteristic, and that's kind of what we've seen the past two games.
Yeah, we'll see what happens with Isaiah Wynn. They picked up its fifth-year option this year. See what happens with him in the offseason this year. Buffalo Bobby McKenzie is secretly awesome. I was very impressed with McKenzie. I think it was Alex Barth that said he's a free agent this year and wonder if he got New England's attention. I don't know, the intentions. I thought he was a very good receiver. He's very fast. Yeah. He schooled Miles Bryant, and Miles Bryant is nowhere a great receiver, but he made him look silly, or a great corner, but he made him look silly at times. And, was a massive target today for Josh Allen. But talking about, Josh Allen for the next 10 years, I think that you got to be worried about Mac Jones for the next 10 years too. I think, Josh Allen led his team to 6-10 the first year that he was in the AFC East. He threw 10 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, only threw for 2,000 yards, I think 2,074 yards. And he only started 11 games. So he's not going to have as much stats as Mac Jones does, but this is going to be a very good battle. And Zach Wilson has flat glimpses of him being good if he can get a good team around him. And same with Tua. I think that this is a very good core group of quarterbacks that you could see have a lot of success. And I really do believe that within the next 5 years, if these quarterbacks keep developing the way they are and you put the right team around them, it's going to be anyone's division. And I think the Jets are the farthest away from winning it, but New England with Bill Belichick, Mac Jones, the team they have around him, Josh Allen with the team they have there, those two are going to be competing for the AFC East title every year for the next 5, 6, 7, 8 years. And who knows, one of them might come out of the AFC. These are two very good football teams when they're playing their best football. And you saw Buffalo playing some of their best football today. And that's what a lot of teams were, or a lot of Buffalo fans were complaining about, was they didn't have enough consistency. Well, the last 2 weeks, they've seemed to have pretty good consistency since they played New England and then Tampa Bay. And then these last 2 weeks, they look like they're getting back rolling to being a favorite in the AFC East. So It's a tough one to swallow, especially at home. That moves our home record to 3-5. It's infuriating
Jeez.
when you've only lost one on the road and you're 3-5, and a lot of these games are one score games. The Bucks game, the Dolphins first game, the Cowboys game. I mean, the Saints one and this one have kind of been the farthest out of reach score wise, and felt like you never really had a chance to win, when in reality you did. You're just one or two big plays away from winning those two games at home. But now you're, not going to get to 500 at home, and that hurts. You got to take care of business at home, and New England hasn't done that good enough this year.
It's just crazy. It doesn't make any sense to me how you're so good on the road and you just can't perform at home. It's just, I mean, it's your home environment. It's the home weather. You're there all the time. It just doesn't make any sense. It's weird for teams to not be good at home and be like better on the road. It doesn't make any sense. So maybe being in the wild card instead of hosting a playoff game is a blessing in disguise. Maybe we'll go on a run like Brady and the Bucks did last year and win on the road the entire time and win a Super Bowl. You never know. But it's just this team right now is so confusing. The way they're playing football, they don't deserve to be in the playoffs if they keep playing this way. But you look at it in other aspects, and if you just take the second half of some of these games, it's like this team can play. It's just they haven't put it together for a full game the past two games, and it's just frustrating because they can, and you know what they can do when they play that well. But they just haven't done it so far. And I mean, Mac didn't play his best game for sure. He had probably one of his worst games, but I can't blame this game on Mac Jones when our defense couldn't force a single punt. I mean, that's ridiculous. I understand the Bills offense is good, but they were also missing an offensive lineman or two. One got hurt mid-game, tore his Achilles probably. Down two of their top receivers. I mean, they still have Stephon Diggs, Isaiah McKenzie, and Emmanuel Sanders, but come on. I mean, you can't in a division game, not season on the line, but a AFC East title on the line, and you don't even force a single punt all game. It's like it's crazy. I mean, Buffalo did have good field position most of the game. That's one thing. They kind of won the field position battle. We were always backed up pretty far, it seemed like, when we did have the ball, and they weren't backed up nearly as much, it seemed like. So that's another thing. Special teams is one thing that Belichick puts a lot of pride into, and we haven't been as good this year as in the past, whether it's punt coverage, whether it's kick returning. I mean, I don't remember very often us ever returning a kick past the 30-yard line. It just never happens. It seems like we barely get past the 20. Like if we catch the ball for a kickoff return, I'm like, I hope we get past the 20 at least, because it just never happens. So we don't have enough explosive plays in those phases at some points, and we haven't really pinned a team back in a little while, like pinned them back far inside their like 10, 5-yard line from what I can remember. And that's one thing that the Patriots love to do. Pin them back, play the field position game. Then our offense is going to get the ball, short field position, and then we only got to go 20 yards for a field goal, and then that's points. So just a lot of the little things that you expect Patriots football to be doing well, we just haven't been doing, and that's why we're losing these games.
Yeah, and I had this comment on my Instagram today for the post that I made with the final score, and someone, overreaction, of course. We suck. Mac Jones sucks. We need a true number one corner. I'm sitting there. I didn't respond, but I'm like, so J.C. Jackson is the number one corner. Mac Jones is on pace to set the all-time record for highest completion percentage by a rookie in a career. Anyways, that's beside the point. What I was going to say is, I bet if you go ask any team in the AFC who they don't want to play in the playoffs, New England's going to be up there. It's probably going to be Kansas City, Buffalo, Indy, New England. These teams are still scary. New England is still a scary team because there's two things that translate to playoff football in January. That's a great defense and a solid run game. And New England has them both. If not, when they're rolling, they have the best of both of those things in the NFL. Indianapolis is dang good at. Kansas City and Buffalo can't really run the ball. They're not very committal to it. They want to throw it with Mahomes and Allen. But New England, this team, you put them in a playoff atmosphere anywhere with the weather, who cares what it is? We saw them go up and win in horrible conditions in Buffalo, and you've seen them win in good conditions before. I feel like this team, very similar to the 0-1 Patriots. We've heard those comparisons. You don't want to see this team in the playoffs, and I hope that they can get back on track, because the 0-1 Patriots, once their last 7 games and we're rolling going into the playoffs, and this kind of feels like this is kind of a buzzkill, and maybe they're losing a little bit of confidence and stuff, but I still would not want to see a Patriots team in the playoff. And that's what excites me is you get Bill Belichick coaching on the other side. You get a solid run game, a great defense when they're playing like they can, and a quarterback that if you have the game situation right where you're leading, he can lead you to a victory. I still think this team can be very dangerous, although it looks like we're not going to win the AFC East. This team is still going to make a good playoff push if they get back rolling.
Yeah, for sure. While you're talking about the page, do you want to say what the page is and what the plan is for it?
Yeah, for sure. So you guys see right here, the new page, Patriots _football with a 10 for the I and the O in Patriots. Obviously, Mac Jones wears number 10, kind of the inspiration there. But the page is going to have clips from this podcast. It's going to be a normal one, similar to Cole's, where I post graphics about the game, the injury report, final score, stuff like that. But most of the clips from here are going to be on there. So I'll compile them throughout the week as we do the podcast. We'll throw them on the Instagram. Cole, if he reposts them, you can see them through his. But if you follow the @ right there for IG, you'll be able to see clips from this podcast, and you can start discussions down there. We'll continue to do comments on the podcast. You can do a Q&A on the Instagram, and we'll convert that over here. We're really stepping up this podcasting with the playoffs coming up, and then the off season where we want to get a lot of interaction from you guys as the fans on both the YouTube live show and the Instagram clips that we're going to be uploading so that we can hear more from you guys. But that's kind of the plan for it. So stay tuned as you guys start seeing those. Feel free to comment. We love the comments on them.
Absolutely. Yeah. Go follow that if you guys don't already. But yeah, but back to kind of what you were saying, this is kind of not the time to be having these struggles. Like in the past, like we were playing on that 7-game win streak, everybody was saying, "Oh, Patriots are getting hot at the right time. Right after Thanksgiving is when the real football starts, and that's when you got to start playing your best." And that's not what we're doing right now. We're really having struggles that we shouldn't be having at this time of the year. You're supposed to be playing your best football, getting into rhythm, knowing what you can and can't do well, and playing your brand of football. And it seems like we're not having necessarily an identity crisis at this point, but it's just we're getting behind in games, and the defense isn't holding up in key situations where we're just not playing how we can play. And that's the biggest thing that's frustrating, because we see the potential of this team. We know how well this defense can play. We know they can clamp up teams. We know JC Jackson can clamp up number one receivers. This was a big test. Him and Stephon Diggs. He got torched by him last year. I thought he held up decent. He let up a few big plays, which is frustrating. But between the different coverages they were playing and some of the plays, he did make a couple plays. Uncharacteristic drop by him on the interception. Usually we'd see JC take that to the house. He's dropped a couple of those the past few games, which is kind of unusual, seeing how he's one of the top interception guys over the past few years. But overall, it's just the team as a whole just not making the plays, uncharacteristic mistakes, flags, all that stuff. It's just we're not used to seeing the Patriots play like this, especially after such a long win streak like that. It seemed like they were rolling at the right time, and now it's kind of going in the other direction. It's not great to see right before the playoffs.
No, you always want to be playing your best football hit going into December, and it seems like New England was on that track, but they, have fallen off that. But speaking, bye week, usually it's helpful. It seems like it's hurt us this year, but all hope is not lost. I mean, we still have a very high chance of making the playoffs. Speaking of the playoffs, let's pull up the playoff picture here and talk through it just a little bit. So you're going to see here Chiefs 11-4 in, control of that number 1 seed right there. They control their own destiny. They play Cincinnati next, which will be a big game. But right now, as we sit in the wild card, we're the 6th seed. Colts above us. They own the tiebreaker since they beat us. And then if we were to scroll down here and look at any of the other wild card teams that are to slip in, the Chargers, Cleveland, if one of those teams were to slip in, we have the tiebreaker over them. So that's what we're holding on to. That's why those 2 wins during that 7-game win streak were big. And say Miami were to slip in, we got to win this next game or the last game against Miami, and we got to hope that New Orleans beats them tomorrow night. So there's still a chance that we get the 1 seed. Cole, do you want to talk about that one?
Yeah. So if Miami wins tomorrow, they move into the 7 seed. So I mean, thinking about missing the playoffs is not great, but there's still a small chance that we miss the playoffs if we really fumble this. You know what I mean? If Miami could move ahead of us in the standings after starting 1-7, which is wild. I know they had a cakewalk of a schedule midway through and won some really easy games, but the kind of the path for the Patriots to move up is Tennessee plays Miami next week. Kansas City plays Cincinnati. So if those top 2 seeds were to lose, if Buffalo were to somehow lose to Atlanta, then we beat Jacksonville. I believe that would put us at back to the 2 seed. Yeah, that would put us, or the 3 seed, 2 or 3 seed. The 2 seed. We'd be back at the 2 seed if all those happened. And then I'm not sure what the Chiefs winning this week. There's no way we could bump up to the 1 seed, but we could move right back up to the 2 seed if a few things go our way next week. But it's a lot of unlikely things, and you kind of got to hope for a lot of different scenarios to happen. Buffalo has to blow a game or 2 to Atlanta or the Jets, 2 easy games that they should win easily, and especially after a big win like this and how they're playing after the first half of that Bucks game. Excuse me, they've been playing really, really well. I mean, we saw the Panthers put some pressure on them, and they struggled at times, but overall, they've been playing a different brand of football since after that halftime, and it's going to be tough for them to lose any more games. So at this point, just got to handle what we can, beat Jacksonville next week, and then hopefully beat Miami and solidify one of the 3 wild card spots. I think if we win in Jacksonville and a couple teams lose, I think we'll clinch a playoff spot. But we'd like to hopefully be a higher seed rather than a lower, because some of the top teams I'm scared of face into the first round. Tennessee, that's not a great matchup for us. Buffalo would be a fun matchup. We'll see how that goes. We split, so it's tough. We'd rather host a game, but at this point, it's not looking likely. The AFC East, the Bills have like a 98% chance now of winning the AFC East. It's gonna be tough. Tough game in Miami. Miami game is going to be wild. Yes, it is. I mean, playing in Miami late in the year for a playoff spot is never ideal for the Patriots. It's always tough, never easy. Playing in that weather, going from Foxborough, 20, 30 degree weather, to playing in Miami like 60, 70, whatever it is at this time. So tough. Not putting yourself in a great situation at this point. We don't control our own destiny anymore for AFC East concerns, but we control our own destiny for the playoffs at least.
Yeah, and when you don't win big games like this, now you have to have help from other teams. Buffalo plays Atlanta and the Jets. We need them to lose at least one of those, and then we need to get or win out to win the AFC East. We need Cincinnati to probably lose to Kansas City. If we were to get above if we were to get in the AFC East driver's seat, that would help us move up. Tennessee plays Miami. That's kind of it helps us both ways, right? If Miami loses, that's always good. If Tennessee loses, that's also good, because that's going to help us if we get into the AFC East driver's seat. Indianapolis, you want them to lose to the Raiders. You want Baltimore, the Chargers, those teams to continue to lose, because when you look at the records, 9-6, 9-6, 8-7, 8-7, 8-7, 7-1, 7-7 for Miami. We'll see what happens to them tomorrow night, but all from spot 5 to spot 11 in the AFC wild card, it's tight. It's within a game. And that's why holding those tiebreakers that we hold against the Chargers, against the Browns, against the Titans, if they were to fall down and Indianapolis were to win that division, those are big tiebreakers that we hold. You just got to now hope for help from other people. And that sucks to say, because you never want to have help from other teams. You want to just be able to control your own destiny, make it easy. But that's the reality of what we're dealing with now, is we got to have help from other teams.
Yeah, and I mean, if you're talking about seeding and controlling your own destiny, we had that opportunity this week. Like we talked about, like we mentioned, Patriots had a chance to clinch a playoff spot and possibly clinch the AFC East this week, and they blew it. That's plain and simple. There's no other way to say it. They blew their opportunity, and this is what they got to deal with now. Now they got to fight for a wild card spot. If you're talking about what's the most likely seed that we'll end up with, the Colts currently have the 5 seed. They play Las Vegas, and then they play the Jaguars. They shouldn't lose either of those games. So that puts the Colts, they have the tiebreaker over us. That puts the Colts as the number 5 seed. So then we're talking about which seed, the 6th or the 7th, the Patriots going to have. If they beat Jacksonville, that moves them to 10-6. If Miami wins this week and then next week against Tennessee, that moves them to 8-7. And then it's going to be about that last game. If Miami beats us that last game, we could drop to the 7 seed. Good thing is we currently have the tiebreakers, like you said, over the Chargers, over Cleveland. We do over Baltimore as well, based on conference record. Same with Las Vegas currently, and Pittsburgh. and Denver. The only team that has the tiebreaker over us is Miami, and that could change if we beat them the last week of the season. So the Patriots, I think, with a win next week would basically secure a playoff spot, most likely. It's kind of a matter of fact of whether you're the 7 or the 6 seed, and we really do not want to be the 7 seed. Playing Tennessee, a healthy Tennessee team, first week of the playoffs, wild card weekend, that's not ideal for us. I would much rather play the Bengals or the Bills than a healthy Tennessee team with Derrick Henry back, which he might be back last week of the season if they need him. So that's not ideal. So playoff seeding wise, got to try to take care of business, win the next 2. If Miami pulls off the upset over Tennessee, then that game in Miami is going to be huge. That's going to be basically you win, you get the 6 seed, you lose, you get the 7 seed, and have to play probably a Tennessee team. Getting healthy. AJ Brown, they just got back this week. We saw what they did against the Niners with him and Julio. Julio didn't do much, but AJ Brown was a beast. So getting Derrick Henry back with that offensive line and Tennessee starting to get healthy, that's going to be a scary team to face. And they're currently my Super Bowl favorites out of the AFC, who I think has the best chance to make it out. So that's a scary team to play first week, especially how physical they are. If they ran on us that much without Derrick Henry, I can't imagine what they're going to do with all 3 of their weapons back. So that's not an ideal matchup for the first round.
No, you never want to see Tennessee there with the experience Vrabel has. Derrick Henry possibility of being activated and healthy, and then Julio Jones, AJ Brown's a monster. Don't remind Patriots fans of that name when you look out and see N'Keal Harry and stuff, but it's a scary sight. And I agree with where we're sitting right now. If it were to be New England getting the 6th seed and playing at Cincinnati, I'd be ecstatic. I'd love that matchup. I think that's a great matchup for New England. You're getting a young quarterback in Joe Burrow who's shown flashes, but we've seen what we've been able to do against Justin Herbert 2 years in a row where we've had success playing against him. So I'd be ecstatic, but obviously you want to get that higher seed. You want to have a chance at home field advantage if New England can still win the AFC East, but it is very, very, very unlikely right now. And that sucks to say, but do you want to get into the good, bad, and the injured, or do you have anything else?
Yeah, we can
playoffs.
do that. I think currently the Patriots have a 94% chance of making the playoffs still. That's kind of them predicting they're going to beat the Jaguars, I assume. So we can hop into that right now, but yeah, just not an ideal situation with the loss today, but at this point it's in the past. There's nothing we can do about it. So we just got to look to the future and see what this team can do to give them the best opportunity to have success in the playoffs. And at this point, that's hope for the Titans, honestly, to beat the Dolphins next week. Hope for the Saints to beat the Dolphins tomorrow, which is not going to happen with all the COVID stuff that the Saints are dealing with. But at this point, you kind of control your own destiny. If we win out, we get the 6th seed, and that's kind of what we got to focus on at this point.
Yeah, New England has a 94% chance. I was watching Steve Karnecki's current thing, and yeah, it's 94% chance. But then that's the thing is I've hit on it so much is about the tiebreakers. Is you look down at the Ravens, the Chargers, the Raiders, and the Steelers, who are the 7, 8, 9, and 10 seed, their chances in the playoffs. So the 6 seed, New England, 94% chance. The 7, 8, 9, and 10 seed are all below 30%. So Baltimore 30%, sorry, the Chargers 33, the Raiders 33, Pittsburgh 15. So we're sitting in a good spot to still make the playoffs, but you got to fix stuff quick because you don't want to be a one and done in the playoffs all of a sudden. You want to, make some noise in the playoffs and make a run, and we'll see how that goes. But let's get into the good, bad, and the injured here. Probably more bad than there is good, but I'm sure there is some good. Do you have somebody you want to start us off with?
Yes. One last thing. So based on scheduling, if we end up getting the 6th seed, we're playing Buffalo in Buffalo is my assumption, because Cincinnati plays the Chiefs and then the Browns. So they should win. They should beat the Browns, but they probably will lose to the Chiefs. And if the Bills win out, they will go above the Bengals. So they'd be the 3 seed. So most likely the final 4 playoff standing is going to be Kansas City, Tennessee, Buffalo, and then Cincinnati. So if we end up with that 6th seed, we're playing Buffalo in Buffalo. We end up with that 7 seed, we're playing Tennessee in Tennessee. So that's kind of the breakdown, I guess, of the standings and how it's most likely going to go. Baltimore also could still slip in there for the division if they end up bouncing back a little bit. They play the Rams, which is not great for them. They play the Rams next, and then last game they play Pittsburgh, so that should be a win for them. So they'll probably win one of the next 2. It looks like Cincinnati's in the driver's seat to get that that 3 or 4 seed, most likely the 4 seed in the AFC, and win that division. So that's kind of the matchups, I guess, for depending on which seed we end up getting. So that's that. But first good I have is Damien Harris. I mean, I thought he was tremendous. 18 carries, 103 yards, 3 touchdowns, 5.7 yards per carry. He was great. I really wish we weren't playing from behind so much, because I think the game he could have had would have been even better than this. I think he could have had 150, maybe more yards, honestly, if we could really utilize him and his skill set. But we couldn't run the ball as often as we wanted to because we were behind the whole game, and that's just unfortunate. That's not how this offense wants to play. But overall, Damien Harris, clear standout. I was worried about his durability, I guess, this game with his hamstring injury. Every time he got tackled, every time his leg got tugged, I was getting a little nervous there. But he seemed to come out relatively healthy, and he had a great performance that really stood out.
Yeah, bye week, missed the Colts game, coming off a hamstring injury, needed someone in the run game to step up with Ramondre Stevenson out, and he took most of the carries and was great on it. 18 for 103, 3 touchdowns. I benched him in fantasy this week against my dad, and I started Saquon over him because same with you. I'm like, oh, and hamstring, and I knew the workload would be there, but dang, that's killing me. So yeah, big time good for Damien Harris. The other good, or the one good that I had, I'm going to go Christian Barmore. He had that bonehead mistake on 4th and 7, and that's a rookie mistake. He did flush Josh Allen out of the pocket a couple times, was able to create some interior pressure. He was really the only guy that I saw creating pressure, and it was outside of 1 or 2 times. He didn't have much. So the whole defensive line in general was a little bit of a disappointment today in the pass rush game, but I did see Barmore get in a couple times, and in other games, he wouldn't even be on the good list. But today, I got to put someone on the defense on the good list, and I feel like I saw Barmore show up multiple times in the pass rush game, having opportunities to get Josh Allen on the ground, but at least flushed him out of the pocket with pressure in his face and making it a couple hard throws. I think the Emmanuel Sanders drop touchdown on 4th down, Christian Barmore's the one that flushed him out of the pocket and was at least chasing him, made him move out of the pocket. So I'm gonna give one to Barmore, but I wouldn't say it's a good. I'd say it's a almost good. I think you've said it, the meh, but compared to what other people have done, it's more meh than what everyone else did.
I'm gonna go with the creativity with the run scheme that we kind of had today. I felt like the offense and Josh did a great job scheming up different runs to take advantage and utilize the Bills overcommitting to certain directions and certain run plays. Like when the whole offensive line was pulling to the right, and I mean, you saw the entire Bills defense crash to that right side, and then Mac Jones pitch it to the left of Damien Harris, and he's got a ton of room to run. Like just stuff like that. I think we really did a great job utilizing them overcommitting different directions to the run game and to different guards pulling and guys with misdirection. I thought we did a really great job of that the entire game. I think that's why we had such success with the run game is different plays like that. I think that's when we had the most success. So that was one thing that I wanted to touch on. I thought we did a good job doing that.
Yeah, I agree. It was the 4th down play. It was 4th and 1, and we bring in a Winu, and we have our jumbo package in, and I think it was 7-0 at this point. And for me, I'm like, I kind of wanted the points. I'm like, I want the field goal because I still had faith in our defense at that point. They had only given up the one drive, the first drive. And so I was like, take the points. We come out and we run a great, I think it's the play you're talking about, speed option to the right, where Mac Jones just takes it, runs down the line. He makes the DN suck on him. He makes a good pitch to Damien Harris. I agree with the creativity. And my second good going along with the creativity is the aggression. The 6 4th down attempts, 5 for 6. I mean, that's big time. And I think Buffalo kind of determined the type of game that they were going to play in that first drive, where they go for the 4th down right off the bat instead of kicking the field goal. They score a touchdown. That's why New England on that second drive after where we go down 7-0, we go for it twice. You wouldn't have seen that in other games, but I thought Buffalo set how aggressive the game was going to be, and New England responded and said, okay, well, if you want to do that, we can do that too. And they weren't just aggressive, they were effectively aggressive. 5 for 6 was great. You just like to see that 3rd down number get up. You wouldn't have to be 5 for 6 on 3rd downs on 4th downs if you could convert 3rd downs and keep drives moving. So the aggression on 4th down is something that I think a lot of Patriots fans haven't seen in a while, and it was good to see, especially in a big game like this.
Yeah, for sure. Did you have another good you wanted to touch on that one?
No, not
All right.
much, unless you did.
Last two I had, I thought Jacoby was good. He was our most productive receiver today. Made some nice catches, made some key catches on 3rd and 4th down. So nice communication between him and Mac on that 4th and 3 towards the red zone late in the game, getting that first down, and then Damien punching it in. So I thought he was good. And then something we touched on earlier, just 4th down efficiency. That was something we hadn't really seen. The like you said, the 5 for 6 or whatever. I agree there. I thought that was good on their part. And then you want to get to the first bad.
Yeah, I think that it's the elephant in the room, and everyone's gonna talk about it. And we already hit on it. Miles Bryant. I mean, when you have 9 total tackles as a corner, it's because you're getting torched. 11 for 125 from Isaiah McKinney or McKenzie. He was. And it was in big plays too. It was multiple 3rd downs. It was a 4th down touchdown. Like it was key times where Miles Bryant was getting beat. And this is the one time where we've really, really, really missed Jonathan Jones. And it will be good to have him back. Although I think Miles Bryant has progressed well this year. This was a big time game where we could have used Miles Bryant, and he kind of got torched and got taken advantage of. So Miles Bryant, I think both of us had him at the top of our list.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, no question, the worst player on the field today, and that stinks to say, but he was awful. And I mean, we've seen flashes this year of him being horrible, but overall, he's been pretty solid and about as good as I could have hoped for a Jonathan Jones replacement mid-year. But we really missed Jonathan Jones today. I think that game goes a lot differently if we have him out there, because McKenzie probably would have been shut down. I mean, Jonathan Jones has wheels, and he's one of the best slot corners in the game. I think McKenzie would have been probably shut down to 2 or 3 catches maybe, and a lot of the catches he had were on 3rd and longs, and those crossing routes that just burned Miles Bryant over and over again. It was crazy, but yeah, so that stinks. I think he was definitely the biggest bad in this game. And then another thing is 3rd down efficiency for us. We were 1 for 10, like you mentioned earlier. Just you can't win football games going 1 for 10 on 3rd down. It's horrible. So that's a big one they got to clean up. Just overall, I think if they could have played the game how they wanted to, it would have been a little bit different. But 3rd down efficiency was something that needs major improvement.
Yeah, it was bad. And I think we saw that last week against Indianapolis too. You're not extending drives and you're given short field position. There was at one point, I think it was 3 drives into the game, where the average starting position for Buffalo was their own 48. New England's was their own 17. So it was not good. My second bad is, and we've talked about this, and I'm not blaming the game on this at all, but the officiating has been horrendous. And we've talked about this, and we can go on a soapbox opera and people can think that we're complaining about the refs. All we want is consistency and accountability. There's no consistency. There's no accountability. Mac Jones, and I get it. It wasn't a malicious play. The announcer said it perfectly, but it's the intent of the play. You're playing an AFC East championship game, essentially, and it's a rivalry. You know what just happened 3 weeks ago. It's the intent of what they were doing to Mac Jones. Throwing him down, no need. And compared to the Josh Allen hit that was called unsportsmanlike against Miles Bryant in Buffalo, it was ridiculous that they call it. Then they proceed, pick up the flag, don't call it, and you have men out there that are getting paid millions of dollars to play this game. It's an emotional game. It's at home. Stakes are high. And you flag Trent Brown for jumping up and down, defending his quarterback, talking a little shit. Like it's so bad. The taunting rule has gotten so bad. And then the same thing the next time when David Andrews gets in Jerry Hughes' face for hitting Mac Jones late. These are grown men protecting their quarterback. This is how the game is supposed to be played, and they're sucking the fun out of it, not only for the players, but for the fans. It's so bad to watch. I was at the Jazz game last night. They set a record for this year, 72 free throws, and it was so bad to watch because the officiating took over the game. And I don't think that this game is any different if New England or if the officials are better, but it's so frustrating to watch where you feel like this game is being dictated by the officials because there were multiple calls in that game that killed New England. That Trent Brown one where they picked up Mac Jones' flag, that's a 30-yard difference before half because we don't get the 15-yarder. Instead, we're moving back. So the consistency of the officials have been horrible lately, and it's really getting annoying, and it sucks to see.
And I hate to be this guy, and I don't want to say I'm blaming the officials because I'm not. I mean, the Patriots are the reason the Patriots lost this game. But if you think that them picking up that flag, which would have gave us 15 more yards, would have put us at like the 30-yard line, that's at least 3 points from our offense, no?
Oh, it would have, yeah.
So at least 3 points there. Then you think about, okay, multiple times in the game we were down 5 points. That would have cut it to at least down 2 points. Just saying. That cuts it to a field goal. That it changes the way the game is played. I mean, it's ridiculous. And what pisses me off the most is what you just said. They called it in Buffalo on Miles Bryant, the softest shit I've ever seen in my life, for him tapping him, pushing him when he was still in bounds, and then him going out of bounds and calling that and giving Buffalo 3 points. But then you turn around in this game, Mac Jones was clearly out of bounds and contact was made to where even if it looked like he kind of was pushing him and then tried to hold him up to like say, oh shoot, I can't do that. And then he kind of pushed and pulled him back down to where Mac fell on the ground like that and his knee got all twisted and all that stuff. But it's like no consistency with it. You call it for Buffalo when we play them, and then you don't call it for us. After you call the penalty, you pick up the flag and say, oh, no, never mind. And then you call it on Trent Brown, like you said, for him just jumping up and down talking. He wasn't gesturing. He wasn't waving. He wasn't taunting. He was jumping up and down and talking to the other team. Like, I mean, it's ridiculous. That was ridiculous in my mind. And then David Andrews didn't push anybody. He walked up in the guy's face defending his quarterback that just got hit on the ground. Like that's what you do as a player. And you heard the commentators saying, I'm surprised that doesn't usually get called when a player is defending his quarterback and doesn't shove anybody and wasn't like malicious about it. He just got up in the other person's face. He's like, I don't usually see that called. So I thought that was a little bit strange. It's just, I thought the officiating was extremely inconsistent. No, I'm not saying it was all the refs' fault. That's not what I'm saying. The Patriots defense, like you said, didn't allow any punts. I mean, you can't win games doing that. That's just not how football works. But they're affecting the outcome of games. They're changing the way the game is played with their calls, and that's not okay. I just think the officiating has caused changes in the outcomes of too many games this year. They're getting too much TV time. They're making too many mistakes, and it's ridiculous when every officiating crew doesn't consistently call the same thing over and over again. And when you see the broadcast team, when you see the officials in New York going over plays and saying, this is absolutely a wrong call. I don't know why they made this call. This isn't right. Like when you consistently see that multiple times every game, there's a serious problem with NFL officiating.
Yeah, and I see the comments going crazy here. If anyone wants to complain about the refs, you should talk about the freaking Bills. They're the whiniest team in the league. Josh Allen wants a call
every
for
play.
everything.
Josh Allen is.
Yeah, I mean, it's like a James Harden out there. So we ain't complaining. The Patriots lost this game fair and square. They shot themselves in the foot, and this is horrible. We're not complaining about PIs that are ticky-tacky. We're not complaining about holdings like on Matt Judon that happened, multiple times a game that have not been called. We're not complaining about this stuff. We're complaining about dumb tauntings. We're talking about protecting our quarterback when clearly Josh Allen jumps from inbounds and then he gets hit by Miles Bryant, barely tapped in Buffalo. Like, we're not complaining about this. We're not John McDermott. We're not Josh Allen. It's bad. So Raven 187, so sad you're crying. Yeah, I'm definitely crying over the officials. They really, chat me. I'm just speaking my opinion, and you're sitting here commenting, giving us views. So thank you so much for that. We'll take it. But anyways, getting back to the bad. If you want to, I think we hit on it. Mac Jones, bad. I think it was one of the worst days. His completion percentage, 14 for 32, 145 yards, 2 interceptions, 39 QBR. Just a game that was bad in general for Mac Jones, and he's got to step it up if we have, hopes for him to go, for this team to go farther in the playoffs.
Yeah, I agree with you there. And kind of like Patriots football just mentioned, too many plays that shot us in the foot. That would kind of be my last one, is just, I guess, execution as a whole and just discipline with penalties and key situations, just little stuff like that. Overall, it builds up throughout the game when you consistently don't make plays. And like we talked about, execution on third down and long, we get them in long third downs and we just can't stop them. So stuff like that is really frustrating when there's plays to be made and you don't make them consistently. It's hard to win games. So that was one thing that was probably the worst and the most frustrating part of this entire game, is just consistently seeing, okay, here we go. We got them in third and long. This is a good situation for the defense. It's not like it's 3rd and inches. It's not like it's 3rd and 1 where they can do 2 QB sneaks and get a first down. 3rd and long, they got to throw the ball. We can pin our ears back, rush the passer, but try to still contain Josh Allen in the pocket a little bit. Don't let him get out. And then he consistently just hit these these plays to either Isaiah McKenzie, Burning, Miles Bryant, or just little stuff like that. Stephon Diggs gets open in the middle of the field. It's just we just couldn't stop him overall, and the execution as a whole on the day was just poor.
Yeah. I don't have, I mean, whole game in general was bad. I mean, no punts, not getting off the field. It all ties together. I thought that we were okay in the red zone. We were 3 for 3 in the red zone. They were 4 for 7. I'll put that as a bad, letting them get in the red zone 7 times. We held them to a 4th down stop, a couple field goals. So we kind of had that bend, not break.
They got in the red zone every drive.
Yeah.
Every single drive they got to the red zone. That's ridiculous. I mean, I know you want to bend, don't break, but at some point you're going to break when you let them in there 7 times. It's ridiculous.
Oh, 100%. And 4 for 7, let me do this. I would do this quick math. It's around 50%. It's probably 60. It's 57. So right at 60%. That's super high for touchdowns in the red zone. You'd like to see your opponents around 35, 40%. So way too high, giving up 7 red zone trips for their offense. And with Josh Allen, and you're giving them multiple chances, especially when you know they're going to go for it. They're bound to get it. Every time, they got in the red zone, I just knew it was going to be a touchdown because of the way the defense was playing. So defense consistently not good enough there. And, I credit that to a lot of things. Starting field position for them. Offense not being able to sustain drive. So we're giving them short field positions, turnovers. There's a lot of bad that we threw into this.
This is a good question. Do you guys think the play calling by McDaniels is too conservative? I'll let you go first.
At times, I think that we would have never have seen 5 for 6 from or going forward on 4th down. We would have never seen 6 4th down conversions. I kind of said I think that Buffalo dictated those decisions, but still, the fact that they're going for it, I don't think it was conservative. Now, there are times where I don't love the play call. There was a 3rd and 2 run to Brandon Bolden. We've talked about this.
Oh my God, it's like clockwork.
And I get some of the talks about, are you being too conservative? Yeah, the 5-yard out on 3rd and long. I think that sometimes the mentality of the 5-yard outs on and draws on 3rd and long are depending on field position. If you're around the 50, you're like, oh, well, this is too far for Nick Folk to kick, and we don't want to punt it here. So let's see if we can get 5 or 6 yards and make it an easier 4th down. So, yeah, I think that there are times where Josh McDaniels is too conservative, and we've seen 15 weeks now of Mac Jones, and we want to see him be able to kind of develop more into not a rookie anymore, get more experience under his belt. And I would love to see the play calling open up still, but I love the 5 for 6 on 4th downs. I thought that was very positive and something that we wouldn't have seen, at the start of the year.
Yeah. And not a lot of them were really that close on if they were going to get the 4th down conversion or not. You know what I mean? I honestly, on the Josh McDaniels play calling question, I didn't have a problem with his play calling today outside of the Brandon Bolden 3rd and 2. I don't ever want to see Brandon Bolden get a handoff on 3rd down and short ever again. Like we've talked about multiple episodes in a row, never works. The good news is they got the 4th down after that, and they cut the yardage at least in half a little bit, but it's just, I mean, almost never works in that scenario. So I don't love that. But other than that, I didn't have a problem with it. I thought a lot of the issues today, like I kind of talked about, was having a lack of a field stretcher. I mean, we ran that flea flicker, and Christian Wilkerson was the guy running the deep route, and he just had no separation. It's like stuff like that. It's tough. So when you got a guy like Aguilar, even though he doesn't make a ton of catches, doesn't get targeted a ton, he opens up the defense a lot and creates those opportunities for guys like Hunter Henry, Jonnu Smith, Kendrick Bourne, Jacoby Myers, all those guys in the middle of the field that like to run those different routes and concepts. I think he has a big impact on that. So for today, I didn't have a big problem with it. Buffalo's defense is good. It is good. They're still missing Tre'Davious White. They were missing Star, however you pronounce his last name.
Lotelele,
yeah.
Star Lotelele or whatever. He grew up by where I went to high school. So the Pauly name, but
yeah, I can't pronounce his name for some reason.
Yeah.
But, they're still a good defense. They're still a really talented defense, and it's tough to get yards on them, especially if you're missing one of your most important receivers, as in what he does for the offense as a whole. Even if he's not the most productive receiver, he's one of the most important to how the scheme works. And they clearly signed him for that money for a reason. Damiere Byrd did some of that last year. Just Cam Newton really couldn't, sling the ball as much and get it to those open receivers, but he made an impact. I don't think Josh McDaniels was a real problem. I actually, like I mentioned earlier, I thought his run schemes and the timing of some of those plays were good. It's tough when you get down that far. Your playbook shrinks quite a bit when you get down that far in a game and you're in comeback mode.
Yeah, and Raven said Hunter Henry was a no-show and he looked like he just didn't care. Yeah, I think we could throw him on the bad list too, but I don't think that it was all Hunter Henry's fault. He was closely guarded on multiple plays. They know when we get in the red zone, he's going to be a target. He had 6 targets. He was only 1 for 9. And there were a couple plays where
some of those were bad throws by Mac.
Yeah, Mac Jones just missed him on a couple plays. So, Hunter Henry was bad. Jonnu Smith was bad. The tight ends didn't show up today. So it was frustrating to see that, because when you don't have Hunter Henry going in the passing game and you're not working the middle of the field, hitting some of those pass plays that Buffalo was able to hit, short ones and catch and runs after, that's when we really were struggling. So I agree with Raven right there. I don't know if he didn't care. I think he was just discouraged. Like, that game kind of sucked the wind out of you, where the defense was on the field for so much and you'd get on the field and you'd run 4 plays and it was just, oh, you're done. You're off the field, because we couldn't get anything going. We couldn't convert on 3rd down. He was getting locked up. And so, yeah, I think that kind of took a little bit out of him. But Patriots football, it would be good for us, for Miami to lose tomorrow night, even though we're already ahead of them. Yeah, it's always good when you have a division opponent lose, especially when they're close to you in the wild card and you're coming up playing against them. So we can take all that help we get.
Yeah, there's a real shot that they could end up ahead of us in this whole playoff race if we end up losing to them. So any loss for Miami is good for us. So if they lose tomorrow night, that doesn't seal, because we still got to take care of business in Jacksonville and hopefully Miami as well. But like Raven said here, going to Miami with Miami, having hope could be brutal. It really could. That is never what a Patriots fan wants to see. We've all experienced too much pain from Miami late in the year like that in Miami. So we don't want to have Miami playing for too much in that game, hopefully. So hopefully they lose to the Saints this week, the Titans next week, and then they'll be playing us. But we got to take care of business. It's tough. Miami, we want them to lose as much as possible because we want to secure that 6th seed or maybe 7, hopefully at worst. But we just got to make the playoffs at this point. That kind of starts next week in Jacksonville. We got to take care of business.
Yeah. Definitely some miscommunication. Not sure if on Max and or Hunter and others. Yeah, we'll take a look at the film. Yeah, and I'm sure that, there were a couple. Mac Jones doesn't get it quite to him. Hunter Henry maybe had a little lazy routes. We'll watch the film, get to that on Monday. Or on Wednesday when we do our pregame episode for the Jaguars and, kind of break down some of the ineffectiveness here. But
I do clearly remember one play where Henry was coming towards, like, I guess our side, like sitting on the TV screen, and Matt kind of threw it further and he kind of had stopped his route a little bit. So I do think there is some miscommunications there. It's just, I don't know. It's just, like Pat's football said, it's kind of too late in the year to be having these problems. You got to get this stuff figured out. It's crunch time. Like Devin McCourty said today in his post-game press conference, every game from here on out is a playoff game. You got to win. You got to win these games to make it to the playoffs. And then once you're in the dance, anything can happen. So you just got to hope to secure a spot, hopefully get as good of a matchup as we can. And I mean, I'd love to go into Buffalo and beat them on the road in the playoffs to get a little payback for this game, because this one definitely stung a little bit.
Yeah, that would definitely be nice. Do you have any injured? Obviously, J.C. Jackson went out with the elbow, came back in. I can't think of too many guys that got injured and didn't return.
I don't think so. I think J.C. Jackson was the only major one so far that, well, not major, but the only one that we know of so far, which is good. Nothing too major out of that one. Buffalo, obviously, they're one of their offensive linemen, I think, might have tore his Achilles. It sounded like, which isn't great. But other than that, I didn't hear of any major injuries, which is good news at least. And Patriots open up as 16.5 point favorites against Jacksonville. That's a big spread. For Jacksonville's not great, but they've played some good teams tight. So I don't think this is I don't think this team can take any team for granted at this point. The way they're playing, you gotta get ready for every matchup and really be prepared for a dogfight, because you're trying to make the playoffs. You gotta win games. You can't drop any like this.
Yeah, Patriots football said it great right here. In the past, this is usually how we're playing in August, like we saw starting off the year 2-4, and then they turn on in December, and we started to see that with the 7-game win streak. And Quite frankly, if you were to lose last week like we did and come back and win this, you're still saying, oh, they're playing pretty good football. They had a slip up after their bye week, but 2 losses in a row in crunch time, especially when you were the 1 seed and you had all the opportunity in the world to secure the AFC East and home field for at least the first week of the playoffs. And now you're playing like this. So I still think that, Patriots fans need to remember, though, like a lot of teams didn't even have us or a lot of analysts didn't even have us in the playoffs. Going into the year, and we're starting a rookie quarterback, and no other rookie quarterback's going to take their team to the playoff this year. And Mac Jones is, going to have a historic season, hopefully win rookie of the year. We signed a bunch of new guys. So I still think that this is a learning year. And yeah, we had, a little bit of false hope once we went on a 7-game win streak and the media started saying, oh, they can win the Super Bowl. And I still think that's very true, but I still think this is a young team, and you're starting to see some of it come out. They have a lot of growing to do. Mac still has things that he can work on. Obviously, he can become a better leader. He can become a better playmaker, a better decision maker, quicker with things. Like, there's always things to improve on. I still think in free agency, you can go out, you hopefully re-sign JC Jackson, maybe draft some more depth at that corner position, maybe find another pass catcher, whether it's a wide receiver 1 or someone. And then in the draft, who knows what you address. And maybe you try to get a little younger at the linebacker with Dante Hightower, Kyle Van Noy, guys like that. You maybe try to shed some contract and use that towards JC Jackson. So there are still things that this team can do, and we're not riding off the ship, but I still think that this is an incomplete team if you want to call them a Super Bowl contender, although we wanted to believe it. This team still has work to do, and we're seeing that the last 2 weeks.
And that's what my concern is that this team, I'm not saying this is what I think. This is what my concern is that this team is more weeks 1 through 6 and these past 2 weeks than the 7-game win streak. That's my concern based off what we're seeing at this point in the year, that they need to turn it around and get things going fast. Because if they play like they played during the 7-game win streak, I truly believe they can beat any team and can win a Super Bowl. If they play like they played the past 2 weeks, I truly believe they could lose to any team in the NFL. That's just plain and simple. I will say past 2 weeks, they've been playing better than weeks 1 through 6, just because in those weeks, sometimes they couldn't mount the comeback. They did against the Texans and they won that game. But in these games, we've mounted the comeback, and then the defense just came up short a little bit on some key drives. So that's not great. Hightower's speed or lack thereof showed against McKenzie. Yeah, they took him out in the second half a little bit. We mentioned this earlier. Because his speed, having him and Bentley out there, 2 slow linebackers, isn't great when you got a bunch of speedy guys and speedy running backs hitting checkdowns for 8 to 15 yards every other play. So I do think that's one thing that could be addressed in the draft. I still don't know what happens at the cornerback position. I like JC Jackson a lot. I still have my questions about him. He's a number 1 corner, but he's not a top. I personally don't think he's a top 3 to 5 corner, and maybe top 5. I don't think he's a top 3 corner in the NFL right now. I just don't. Top 3, top 5 cornerbacks in the NFL, lock down number 1 receivers week in and week out, and don't make some of the mistakes that I've seen him made in the past. I do think he's improved from last year to this year. I think he's getting a lot closer to that top 5, top 3 conversation, but he still makes plenty of mistakes. Against big receivers, he still makes, not plenty, he still makes some mistakes. I do think he's a true number 1 corner, but Stephon Diggs, he's a beast, and there were just some plays where when Stephon Diggs got the best of JC Jackson for sure.
Yeah, and I don't think that New England's going to find any better cornerback on the market than JC Jackson unless they were to have kept Gilmore. But he's only 26. Stephon Gilmore won his Defensive Player of the Year award right at 28, 29 years old. So yeah, he's still young, and he's an undrafted guy. He's learning. I think that JC Jackson's the best option. You just got to build a little bit more around him at the corner positions. Jalen Mills has kind of played better, but Jonathan Jones, him coming back healthy, but you need to have these backup plans and guys in place for when injuries do happen. That stuff like this is harder. Hopefully Sean Wade, who knows, that was a trade that they struck, and maybe they can get something out of them, although he hasn't played maybe a year in the system and off season. Maybe he's an answer either at safety or somewhere, but I think JC Jackson's the best you can get, and we'll talk more about the draft in the upcoming weeks once we know, our pick, or we're done with the season because we still have games to play, and the draft isn't on our minds like the draft is for the Jaguars or the Lions or teams like that. So
off topic, but are you guys seeing the Dallas / what? Yes, the Cowboys are smacking the living shit out of the Washington football team right now. It is yes. It is getting ugly. 49-7 and I think it's still the third quarter, right?
Yes,
Wow. Yeah,
it is
that's an ugly game
a
right there.
bloodbath.
But
So
as of draft pick wise, yeah, we'll get into that more later in the year. But I don't want to be talking about draft picks yet because I want to be talking about playoffs and where we're going to be ending up, hopefully in the Super Bowl in February. It's tough to tell. I don't really have a prediction for this team right now because they've been so inconsistent. Just what we've seen in the last 2 weeks isn't what we've seen the past 7 before that. So it's tough to tell what this team's going to end up being, what their true identity is, and it's tough. I mean, we know what they're capable of playing, and like you said, if you got to think of it with some perspective. If you would have told me beginning of this year that we'd be 9-6 right now with a chance to be a mid seed in the wild card and make the playoffs with Mac as a rookie starting the whole year, I would have been very happy. I really would have been very happy. But I think what I struggle to comprehend is expectations change. And when you see them start 2-4, my expectations were if they can even sneak into the playoffs or just get close to the playoffs, that's a win for me this season. But then when you see him go on a 7-game win streak and you see him beat the crap out of some teams, see him beat the Browns 45-7 or 45-3, whatever that was, and you win some big games against some solid teams, your expectations also change. And it's like, okay, this team at this point, during that 7-game win streak, I was like, okay, expectations for this team is if you win the divisional round and maybe go to an AFC championship, even if you lose, whatever, that's success for me. That's okay. That's great. And now the team where it is right now, I mean, if we win in the wild card round, that's success for me this year in my eyes. And it's just expectations change. It depends. I mean, it depends what your perspective is. If you're looking at long term, being in the playoffs year one with Mac Jones, and if we win one game in the wild card round, that's great. You got to be happy with that. So I'd be happy with that at this point. I'd like to see the team turn it around and play like they were the first 7 weeks and have us have a shot at maybe an AFC championship game. That'd be incredible, but it is what it is. And you got to at least be happy with the progress we're making. This is year one of a 4 to 5 year plan.
Oh yeah, 100%. And Mac Jones is going to get better. I mean, we still have Judon. We have Hunter Henry, Jonnu Smith, Aguilar, Bourne. Like, our core is there. The guys we just signed off season are going to be there. Question marks with JC Jackson, Isaiah Wynn. I mean, we still have Michael Winu, who's not even starting for us. He's coming in certain packages in the run game. You can still go out and find better receivers. I think more depth at the receiver at least. I think the running back situation's pretty good. There's, youth that you need to get at the linebacker position and maybe at one of the safety positions with McCourty, because who knows his status. But there's things that this team can still do to be competitive and, get to that Super Bowl contender while Mac is still on his rookie deal, 4 or 5 years, like you said.
Yeah, for sure. I have a quick suspicion about why the officials are making the calls they're making. I think they're angry at the Patriots for having to report Mike Onwenu as eligible every other play. I mean, 71 is reporting as eligible. I think that's why they might be getting frustrated with the Pats and not giving them some of those calls. So I think maybe if we stop doing that as often, the calls will even out a little bit, and we'll have a little more consistency during the game. But yeah, no, this is early. Early part of a longer term plan. I like what I've seen from Mac so far this year. He's definitely got room to improve. He's still made rookie mistakes, but overall, we've seen him bounce back time and time again. So you got to be excited about the future. It's obviously tough after a game like this to be excited because we just got smacked in a big game that we could have clinched the AFC East, and we could have been celebrating this podcast and having a lot different conversation about, oh my goodness, we're going to be a top. Are we going to get the 1 seed? Are we going to be 2 seed? Like, that's a lot better of a conversation than, okay, we probably can't get the 5 seed. Maybe we can get the 6. Hopefully we at least get the 6. You know what I mean? That's a lot different conversation. So it is what it is at this point. They lost to the Bills. It's over. Nothing we can do about it now. All we can do is control our own destiny, get that 6 seed in the playoffs, and hopefully go into Buffalo and kick some ass. So that's what I'm hoping for.
Yep, I totally agree. And we got to finish off this season strong. Go get a very easy win, hopefully, knock on wood, get back on track, use it as a game that kind of jumpstarts you, and then go beat Miami, go get revenge on them in their place, kind of like Buffalo just did to us this week. So still work to be done. I think that this is fuel for this team. And, they seem like they're pretty focused this week in practice from the reports. Buffalo just wanted it more. This is just more fuel to add and more determination that this young team needs to use and build off of. So I'm excited to see it. We'll be back on Wednesday to do our pregame episode for the Jaguars. Thank you guys for tuning in. I'll let you take it out, Cole.
Yeah, just if you guys didn't hear JC earlier, he's got the page right there. New page. He's going to be posting clips and his new fan page. He's going to be doing scores and all that different stuff. So check that out if you guys haven't heard already. One last thing. Let's see. Mac is solid. No Brady at this point, but hands down, not Alex Smith or Trent. Wow.
Dilfer.
Right. Yeah.
I think the question you have to ask with that is like, what Brady are you comparing him to? Are you comparing him to 08 Brady?
Earlier.
Are you comparing him early? Are you comparing him to this Brady? Are you comparing him to 01 Brady? I think he's very similar to 01 Brady, and because of how the team's built. Very strong run game, good defense, and he can do it if he needs to. He just has to be put in the right situation and not have a huge deficit to come by. So yeah, if you want to compare him to early Brady, maybe he obviously they both had their things to do. Like Brady won a Super Bowl and they still didn't know if he was, or he took him to a Super Bowl. They still didn't know if he was going to start. He starts, and then we all know where it is. So yeah, it depends on what Brady you're comparing him to, obviously. But I think that Mac Jones has the most potential out of this quarterback class, just because of the fact that he does everything you want a quarterback to do. First, he throws the ball accurately. He throws it on time. He's smart in the playbook. He's a good leader. He has all the quarterback intangibles. He might not be the Zach Wilson, Trey Lance of the group where he's going to wow you athletically. Yeah, just like Raven said, Mac is very smart like Brady. With time, he'll be fine. Exactly. That is what carries over in the NFL. Look at the great quarterbacks as of late. Matt Ryan, he's 8th on all-time pass. And I'm not calling him great, but he does what Mac Jones does. He reads defenses. He throws it quick. He's 8th all-time in NFL passing yards. Peyton Manning, Drew Brees, Phillip Rivers, Brady. Like those guys are not athletically, like they're no Lamar Jackson. They're not even a Josh Allen, but they throw the ball well. They throw it on time. They make the right reads, and they lead their teams on long drives down the fields and chew up clock. So I think that Mac's very similar to that. And within a couple years, he could definitely be like that, especially with the coaches that he has around him. Bill Belichick, Josh McDaniels, guys like that he's learning from. I think he can definitely get to that. And I'm excited to see his progression in the next couple of years.
And his progression so far has been promising. But I think one thing is, I don't think we have all the answers yet on Mac. It's still early. It's like, I think one thing that's a little bit different about, like some people say, oh, Mac can't have a late comeback drive and a game-winning drive late in the game. He hasn't shown that yet. I mean, he hasn't had the opportunity. I think the difference is we saw Brady early in his career have some of those comeback drives, but the reason he could have those comeback drives is because the defense made a key stop in a situation to give him the ball back to have that drive, that game-winning drive. And we haven't seen the defense do that for Mac yet. I mean, the only time was, I guess, Houston, and he did well. I guess you could say maybe Dallas, that was a kind of a situation where he tied it up, and then over time we had the chance to go out there and win it, but Aguilar dropped that ball that literally could have been a touchdown that we went over on in the film. But I guess we really haven't seen it. We haven't seen the opportunity with Mac. We've gotten close with the Colts, with the Bills this game. We've gotten it within striking distance, and the defense couldn't make a stop to give Mac the ball back to have that opportunity to go on that game-winning drive and put this team ahead. So that's one thing I'd like to see him have the opportunity to do, to see how he handles it. I think he'll handle it great, but that's another thing that it's too early to tell. We haven't seen enough from him yet to know what he can and can't do for sure.
Yeah, and have you seen Trevor Lawrence go on a drive? Have you seen Zach Wilson go on a 2-minute drive? Like, it's the same thing. They haven't had an opportunity to, because their team hasn't given a chance. And yeah, it's a little different because the Jets and the Jaguars are not nearly as good as the Patriots are. But you don't see rookie quarterbacks have to do that very often, because most of the time their teams aren't in situations to do that. And Mac's team has been in situations. They just haven't executed it and given him the ball. Indianapolis would have been awesome to see what he could have done last week. This week too, if you would have gotten out of third down, 3rd and 10,
I think you would have done it
3 and out. Yeah, it would have been awesome to see.
You're rolling.
And so you just haven't had those opportunities to, keep it within one possession and let Mac go down and do it. But it will come, and another offseason will be great. under his belt, where he knows he's a starter. He's not battling with Cam and having all these other distractions. But progression is what I expected from Saban influence. He has a solid base and is a very grounded player. Yeah, Alabama. That's why, you see Bill target these Alabama players so much, is because he goes in and he says, Saban, hey, I trust you. Like, I know how you run your program. You're hard on them. You coach them right. They are used to winning. That's the one thing that I love about Mac, is he's a proven winner. At Alabama, you win games. You don't go 5-5. You win football games. And I know he only started 1 year, but you consistently win football games. I love Zach Wilson, but before his great year, year one or his last year at BYU, he was going 8-6, just like mediocre. But Mac is a proven winner. He knows how to win games from that Alabama program. Saban built him up. He competed all 5 years for a starting job with Tua and Jalen Hurts. He didn't transfer. He didn't take the easy way out. He worked his butt off. I'm excited to see where he goes. I think he's the perfect personality and player for this organization to have under the belt.
I agree. I'm definitely happy with our situation here, and I think like we've talked about a little bit here, and like Raven mentioned, progression is what we want to see, and we've seen that so far. We've seen improvement steady throughout the year. He's had up and down games, but he's bounced back in a lot of those games mid-game, and he seems to be able to wipe it and move on to the next play pretty easily. So that's what you want to see. He hasn't got gun shy necessarily after an interception. He's still slinging it and doing his thing, making the right read. He trusts his instincts and trusts his ability and knowledge with the playbook. So I like what I've seen from him. But overall, just to recap real quick, obviously Pats followed the Bills today, dropped from the 2 seed to the 6 seed. That's what we're going to finish as this week, and have an opportunity next week to possibly clinch a playoff spot. Playing Jacksonville at home at 1:00. It should be an easy game, but you never know. It's the NFL any given Sunday, so we'll see where we end up. But you got anything else?
No, I'm good. We'll see you guys Wednesday. Plan on that. Check both of our Instagrams for the link on Wednesday's show.
Yep, sounds good. All right, we will see you guys Wednesday. Thanks for tuning in tonight, and have a good night, everybody.
Thanks for listening to this edition of the Patriots Drive podcast. Follow us on social media to stay up to date with all things New England Patriots. Make sure you tune in to the next episode and check out patriotsdrive.com for more great content.
We're on to Cincinnati.